Kamaru Usman defended his title for a 5th consecutive time, outpointing bitter rival Colby Covington in the main event of UFC 268 this past Saturday in New York City. Hello everyone, my name is Danny Segura, and in this video we are going to discuss Kamaru Usman's latest championship defense. So also not only about the performance itself, but what is next for Usman, and also what is next for the loser, Mr. Colby Covington. All right, so let's quickly go over the result and the performance, and then we can go into what this victory means for both fighters and where they should go next. So in the main event, Usman outpointed Covington via unanimous decision 48-47, 48-47, and 49-46. Now, I scored this fight very different from the way we see the judges there. And so I don't want you to agree with me. You don't have to agree at all. I understand that this is a little bit outside of the box scoring. But again, this is how I view the fight. All right, I already got enough hate on it on Twitter. I don't need any more on YouTube. But I thought the fight was, the first 2 rounds were pretty clear for Kamaru Usman. Obviously, he took the first one, 10-9. He took the second one, 10-8. He knocked him down twice, and he was pretty close to finishing the bout. But then I thought the rounds 3, 4, and 5 were close. And I did give all those 3 to Colby Covington, 10-9. Again, I don't have a problem if you scored one of those rounds, especially the 4th and the 5th, to Usman, but because, again, it was very close. But I did think Covington did take the 3rd, and the 4th and the 5th were very close. So I had the fight 47-47, a tie. Again, I think at best is a 47-47, a tie, at best for Colby Covington. But if you scored it, again, 48-47, I think that's a completely understandable scorecard. In fact, I had a tough time judging the 5th round. That one could have been Usman. So again, if you get to it 48-47, have no issue with that whatsoever. So again, I think at best, Covington pulls off a tie, or Kamaru Usman takes the W here. By no means should Covington be up on the scorecards. I know some people, if you scored it the way I did through the last 3 rounds to Covington, and if you didn't give that 10-8 to Usman in the second, obviously that would have made Covington the winner there. I don't agree with that. I think the second one was a pretty definite 10-8 round. All right, so about the fight itself, like I said, there was a big momentum shift. Usman was dominant for the first 10 minutes, and then the last 15, it was competitive. Right? I think the biggest difference in the way the momentum shifted starting that third round, and I think it's something that fighters will pick up moving forward, I don't know if you guys picked it up, was the way Colby approached the fight. Colby, in those first 10 minutes, respected Usman way too much. Way too much. He knew he had the power, so he stayed on the outside. He tried to avoid Kamaru Usman's punches, doing leg kicks, using straight punches, trying to keep the distance, and eventually he got caught, and eventually he paid for it. But in the 3rd round, he had a big change, and a change that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it works. You would think that you would want to stay away from Kamaru's power, away from his striking, right? You would think that going into the phone booth, going into the trenches with him would be the bad idea, but it actually isn't. Putting Kamaru Usman on the back heel turns him into a different striker. And remember, he's been looking great as a striker. I don't want to take anything from Usman, but he is still very much somewhat of a novice striker. Not so long ago, he was known as the wrestler that could strike and hit hard, but he was a physical specimen that will clinch you up, that will put you up against the cage and take you down. Really, this Kamaru Usman 2.0 with Trevor Whitman is fairly a new thing, so you can expect he doesn't have all the answers when it comes down to the striking. I think moving forward, he's a menace. He can strike very well. He knows how to throw combinations. He sticks with them. He's very accurate, and he's got ridiculous power. But backing up is a different story, and I think Colby Covington proved that. Once he started putting Kamaru Usman on the back heel, the power was no longer nearly as menacing, and also his technical ability kind of took a hit. All of a sudden, and you saw it, I think it was brought up, I was watching the Spanish commentary, so I don't know if it was brought up in the English, but Brandon Moreno brought it up in the Spanish commentary, saying that Kamaru Usman at times was diving his head and swinging and closing his eyes and not really, keeping his eyes wide open and sort of keeping his his guard up. Sometimes he would dive down and punch, and that's obviously not a good thing when it comes to striking. And that was all because Covington was pressuring. And to back up everything what I said, if you look at the 5th round, and you can go back and check this, Trevor Whitman was very, very specific to the advice that he gave Kamaru Usman, and that was back him up. Don't let him back you up. I believe that was exactly his quote. And obviously, easier to said than done to go in there and pressure someone like Usman. But I think you're better off pressuring Usman, being in the trenches with him, than trying to back up. And I think that was one of the biggest things that ended up costing Masvidal, a title, and also, a fairly bad performance as well. I mean, he got laid out and knocked out pretty quick by Usman. Obviously, Masvidal is not the physical figure to kind of run you down and hunt you down and sort of hit you with strikes. He's always been a counterpuncher in the back heel, but I really do think that's probably the worst way to approach this version of Kamaru Usman. You can't back up, because at range, pressuring forward, Kamaru Usman is an absolute stud on the feet. So anyways, that's what I thought was the biggest difference that changed the momentum. But all in all, again, like I said, very dominant performance in the first 10 minutes from Usman. Then it became competitive in rounds 3, 4, and 5. As I had said on my weekly, well, not weekly, but on my live Q&A last week, Colby Covington had a lot more to lose, and there was a lot more riding on the line for him in this fight. And this is why. Kamaru Usman, if he were to lose, sure, it might sort of stain a little bit this thing that he's trying to achieve of being the GOAT, right? The best welterweight on the planet, also the best pound for pound, fighter on the planet. Certainly, it would take a bit of a hit on his legacy, but all in all, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I mean, I think given what he's done, 4 consecutive title defenses, and the way he's done them, also the rivalry and the bad blood that he has with Colby Covington, he pretty much would have been guaranteed a 3rd fight. So at least he would have stayed at championship level. He would have gotten another chance to regain his title. So it wasn't the end of the world if he were to lose the bout. Again, not good, but not the end of the world. But for Covington, it's a completely different story. Why? Because if he would have lost, and he did lose, he's now 0-2 against the champion in a division full of contenders. If the division were to be very, very shallow, you go, okay, maybe he just needs a win here and there, and he's back in the mix contending for a title. However, you got Khamzat Chimaev coming up real fast. You got Vicente Luque already deserving of a title shot. You got Leon Edwards already deserving of a title shot as well. And, that right there is, makes the line quite long at 170 pounds. On top of that, you add the fact that Covington is 33 years old. He turns 34 in February, so in just a few months here. And look, he doesn't have that much time to wait. At 33, 34, you're probably in your prime, but towards the end of it, right? So again, I'm not saying that a trilogy fight is impossible with Usman, but like I said, he did have a lot more to lose in this one because it's not going to come anytime soon. It's not going to come anytime soon, and he needs to, get some wins under his belt and hope that other things in the welterweight division play out in his favor. He needs to hope that Jorge Masvidal puts away Leon Edwards, therefore he doesn't fight for the title next. He needs to hope that maybe Kamaru Usman loses his title. That way, it's a fresh matchup once he gets into the championship title contender status, position. So again, a lot of ifs for Colby Covington. So I do think he was the one that had the most on the line for this bout. Now, let's shift gears back to the champion, and then we'll focus on Covington here in a second. So what's next for Mr. Kamaru Usman after his 5th consecutive title defense at 170 pounds? Well, like I just said just a couple minutes ago, he's got a lot of contenders already in line, and then some of them coming up. So for me, I think Leon Edwards is the most deserving guy at 170 pounds. Vicente Luque is certainly super deserving as well, but Leon Edwards is on an incredible streak. I mean, he's done everything the company has asked for him to do. And now he's got a bout with Jorge Masvidal. I think if he were to beat Jorge Masvidal, and again, You know Dana White, he doesn't like fighters waiting for title shots. So he's out there doing everything he possibly can to get that title fight against Kamaru Usman. So I think if he beats Jorge Masvidal on December 11th, you got to give him the title shot. You got to give him the title shot. I mean, if you deny him at this point, what are we doing? What are we doing? And yes, I know he doesn't sell the most pay-per-views. Yes, I know he's not the biggest draw. He's not the most charismatic guy. But at some point, MMA and specifically the UFC, because this is the organization we're talking about here, you have to compromise. Yes, business is business. It's business entertainment, right? It's combat sports. But at the same time, you do got to cater to the sporting aspect. Sure, sometimes it's good to do super fights. I understand when sometimes a rightful contender is skipped over someone that sells pay-per-views. But at this point in time, Leon Edwards has been through so much, has beaten so many guys over and over and over, that if you skip him, is a bit of a black eye to the sport. I mean, what are we doing here? At some point, you got to cater to the sporting side. So if Leon Edwards gets past Jorge Masvidal at UFC 269, he absolutely needs to be next in line. No questions asked. So that's what should be next for Kamaru Usman. Now, Masvidal, we can't forget. I know he's a little bit older in age. He's coming off a bad knockout, but he is a very, very experienced veteran. He's a very savvy guy, a guy that, has a lot of skills. So you never know. If he pulls off the opposite, I don't think Jorge Masvidal deserves a title shot. In that sense, I think the next person in line would be Vicente Luque. So again, I think Vicente Luque should just wait a month. December's just around the corner. See how that fight plays out. If Leon Edwards does get a victory, okay, maybe think of taking a fight if you don't want to wait around. But if he loses, you best bet that you're up next. All right, now as far as what's next for Colby Covington, I think there's actually some very interesting options out there. I think if Jorge Masvidal gets past Leon Edwards, like I said, I don't think Jorge Masvidal deserves a title shot right away. I think he would be one, maybe two fights away from a title. Obviously, he has a big name, so I think it would just facilitate things. Probably two fights, I think, but one of them should be against Colby Covington. Why? There's a lot of history there, a lot of bad blood. Who knows if it's a really fun fight? Maybe it can, and competitive, maybe it can set itself up for a rematch. Who knows? Maybe a trilogy if the results sort of work out and each fighter has a victory to their name. So I think that's a fight that should go down at some point in the near future. Maybe next, I don't know. Obviously, that depends on how he does against Leon Edwards, but that's definitely an option. Another name that I like to throw out there is Belal Muhammad. Belal Muhammad has been calling out for Colby Covington for quite some time. Look, Covington, you beat Tyron Woodley. That's all great, but also Jake Paul did the same thing. Prior to that, you had lost to Usman. You come back, you lose again. I know you want to fight all the best guys, right? But you do at some point have to take a step back and give a little bit of a chance to the guys that are coming up. And I think Belal Muhammad being a number 9, being on a nice win streak, coming off, I believe, a win over Damian Maia, if I'm not mistaken, that fight would make a lot of sense. Another fight that I would like to throw out there, and it's a bit of a left field one. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Maybe it's rushing him a bit too much, but certainly we can't disagree that it wouldn't be at least intriguing. Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, this fight week leading up to UFC 268, he took some shots at Khamzat. Khamzat had his response online. It would be a very, very interesting fight. The only problem with that is that you're kind of, fast-tracking Khamzat, and I would like to see him get a little bit of a slow build. And I'm not talking about, 4 fights more, but maybe 1 or 2 more fights before he gets to the top 5, just so we can enjoy and let him sort of develop as a fighter. I think rushing him, again, he's looking great, so it might not be a mistake. But again, to err on the side of caution, maybe it's best to give him a little bit of wiggle room before you throw him against a top 5 like Colby Covington. So all in all, just fantastic fight. Great performance by Kamaru Usman. He's clearly, becoming history, really. I think he certainly surpassed Tyron Woodley's reign as far as, the greatest welterweight champions in the history of the UFC. We'll see how he stands in the future as he continues to rack up title defenses. So congrats to Kamaru Usman. We'll see where Colby Covington lands next. He's still a very game fighter. I think that was a good performance, even though he lost. And look, whether you like it or not, he is one of the more popular names at 170 pounds. So certainly he has some big fights ahead. All right, so please give a thumbs up to this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, drop on the comments below, what do you think should be next for Usman? What do you think should be next for Colby Covington? I'm curious to know your thoughts on the future of both of these athletes. So thank you so much for watching this video. Again, like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.